Hello everyone and welcome to our live stream here at Hope United Church.
We would love to see any of our services in Motherwell at 11 AM or in Dundee at 5 PM.
Why not check out Pastor Mark's web series The Thinking Church, which you can find on our Facebook page or on Pastor Mark's page on our website every Friday.
And if you have any questions or queries, please feel free to contact us at info@hopeunited.org.uk.
Enjoy the service.
We have been in the life of Paul for pretty much close to, on October, around about next week, is when the Word of God was found in this church. As if, I know we preached it before, but not the way we've talked it. The Word of God was found, which would have been the exact year. And in fact, it was that weekend of the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. Now, we didn't know that at the time. It's just when we look back in retrospect, it was that weekend of, I know we don't like to be spooky or anything like that, or to be flaky, but it was the exact weekend of the 500th anniversary of the Reformation that the Word of God was found, if you like. And here we are next week, we're a year later. And the first 11 and a half months was awesome. But we have been in the book of Acts for pretty much all of that. And we're coming at the end, and as I was studying this week, I was like, well, that'll be it. That'll be it this week. No, chapter 27, let's get it out the road. And the more I studied it, the less I'm like, no, you can't end this, because the book of Acts has been ever present in every day, in every part of your journey. In this season, it's been so, everything that we've went through, everything that we've had to find language for, everything that we've had to kind of uncouple ourselves from. And don't you think that church is a lot about unlearning? Don't you think that? We are people have said this before, that we are a sculpture church rather than an artist church. A sculpture church, an artist church is when, you've heard me saying this, you come to church and we add something lovely to make you even more beautiful and make you even more nice and add stuff to your life. And a sculpture church is when you come to church and you come as somebody and then you get a hammer and chisel and you start knocking off of everything that you don't need. And we're a bit more of a hammer and chisel church. Oh, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that. Predominantly modern church, if you like, and I don't want to label it modern church. No, it's very much artist church, because they're adding stuff to your already greatness. Unfortunately, they're putting greatness on top of no so greatness, and we never get to the root of the problem. We're more like bamboo. We're like the bamboo church, and if you know anything about bamboo, maybe you've heard me talk about this. And I read a book on bamboo once. I was in Hong Kong, and it's an amazing place, Hong Kong. But I was there, and these skyscrapers are massive, and all the scaffold are made of bamboo. Bamboo scaffolding everywhere. I was fascinated with the bamboo scaffolding, and it just seemed like bits of tree with bits of string tying it together, 100 stories high, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's dangerous, and I'm not scared of heights, and that stuff was freaking me out. So I seen a book about bamboo. I thought, oh, there you go. Let's get a book about bamboo, as you do. And I was reading about bamboo, and it's an amazing thing. Bamboo is stronger than steel. When it's combined together, it's the strongest. It's way stronger than steel. It's the only thing that survived the Hiroshima bomb. Bamboo. But more than that, bamboo, and this is what I read that fascinated me, bamboo grows up to 3 feet down the way before it grows an inch up. Don't you love that? So sometimes you think, I don't see any change. I'm not growing. Bamboo grows 3 feet down before it grows a single inch above ground. So all the growth is happening underneath before you see anything. And then see when it grows an inch above ground. Once it gets an inch above ground, it can grow 1.2 meters in a day. And I've always felt like, we are that bamboo church. I think we're going deeper than 3 feet, but that's my problem, struggling with that. I think we're 6 feet deep, but it grows, yeah. So in this journey, in the book of Acts, that, as I say, I thought we'd finish this week, the first 9-10 chapters is about Peter, Apostle Peter, who's phenomenal. No, his first sermon, 3,000 get saved, and his second, 5,000 get saved. That don't make you feel inadequate? 3,000 and 5,000, no, 8,000 people saved in his first two sermons. He was phenomenal. And then by chapter 10, as we know, Apostle Paul then comes on the scene around about chapter 8, causes all sorts of trouble, and then he has an amazing conversion in the Damascus Road, and then we pretty much followed that for the past 9-10 months, veering off ever so slightly, but predominantly word for word what the book of Acts has been saying. And it's been so amazing for us as a church to find language for how you should build church, what you need, what you don't need. And I don't blame MD for that, where we were at. We just followed a model. We just followed a model that we were used to, thinking that's how you do it. It's monkey see, monkey do. It really was, and we just followed that model until God decided otherwise, which he just didn't. And nothing's wasted. Don't you realise it? Don't you know that nothing's wasted? See, even if you've been going the wrong way forever. No, it's just nothing's wasted. Nothing's. I get lost one time going to Bournemouth. This is pre-sat nav. Yeah. And I drove to Bournemouth and I just thought it's south. That's how naive I was. Just thought everything's south. And I ended up in Torquay. Right? And it's nowhere near it. One's in the east coast, one's in the west coast. And I ended up in Torquay, and then I ended up in a place called Honington, which is just outside Torquay. And I stopped a man about 3 in. There was nobody about, but there was a guy came out of a car, and I says to him, "Could you tell us where Bournemouth is?" And he just went, "Ha ha ha." I thought, that lost. Am I that lost? And he just pointed. He didn't give me directions. He just gave me time scale. He says 3 hours that way. I thought, oh no. And then you've got to go back. Here's the problem. You've got to go back the road that you went. Don't you hate that? Don't you? No, you've got to go back the road you went. But I thought I was going the right way the first time. No, so it'll look very differently in the way back. But at least I knew I was going the right way. And sometimes I think in life, and I've learned this, and do you know what I've learned in this whole season and maybe the last 10 months? I don't try and figure out what God's next step is. You go, I know what God's doing. See, every time I've said in the last 10 months, I know what God's doing, it's never been that. You ever noticed that? You go, I know exactly what God's doing. And then something happens, you go, oh, it couldn't have been that. No, it's like Job, innit? You've got everybody trying to explain what's happening, and God knows exactly. He's sovereign. God's sovereign is... But when you're in it, you're always trying to find answers and reasons, and sometimes there's no answers and reasons other than just the process of just going through it. And that's what develops you, and I've known that for a long, long time. In my life, for 20 years, he trying to deal with me and learning to try and figure out who I am. Everything you go through is just to help you and equip you. It just depends whether you're willing to learn through it or not, or willing to grow through it and willing to develop through it. So the book of Acts has been amazing because it's gave us language for what we've been trying to do. It's gave us language for some of the Pentecostal stuff, the charismatic nonsense. And we were right in it at the time when it helped us, but when we were and a lot of that was in transition and different stuff. And you get through chapter and verse, even to the trials and the persecution right in that. And it's not even later, it's the exact same time. So it'd be crazy for me just to say, you know what, let's just end the book of Acts now, because I still think wherever we're at the now, I believe the book of Acts has got answers, and the book of Acts has got answers right now for where we're at right now. Now, where we're at I don't know where you're at right now. I'll tell you where I'm at right now, spiritually. Where I'm at right now is I'm after the battle. Do you get what I mean? It's after the battle, so you're still a bit raw. If that makes sense, you're still a bit raw, maybe ever so slightly fragile, slightly vulnerability hangover, because the hardest thing I've found in difficult seasons is to no fight. Yeah. Especially when you've been a fighter all your life. I even fought when there were nobody to fight. So learning not to fight and learning to fight the good fight of faith is a hard thing to do, especially when you've got to kind of let things go and let things go with the flow. So here we are, and we've learned stuff about, and we'll be able to share that over the next few weeks about what we've done and what we've not done. One of the things, and before I get into this, is that we've done in church, I think it's been crazy. And I didn't know it was crazy because I thought it was a great idea. I said at the start of the year, if you can remember, or at the end of last year, that we're going to love those, especially those in the household of faith. That was the predominant thing that we were going to do first and foremost. I think as a church, one of the big mistakes we've made, and other churches will have a different view, is that we've cared more about them not in church, trying to get them in, than we have about growing them who are in. There's a difference between ministry and mission. Yeah. And I think the thing is, people say, and the reason it gets hijacked is, and I'll tell you why I believe it gets hijacked. Don't want to be over political. And if you read I've just come off Facebook. So see if you've been in touch with me on Facebook. I'll want to explain to you. Just get in touch with me on Instagram. I don't think Facebook's bad if that's what you're into, but it's just doing my box in, to be honest with you. So I'm just going to go through Instagram, to be honest with you. No, because then I don't need to have to deal with stupid questions and all that. But I don't mean for the church. So I'll find another way. I need to say that right there. So I don't want the church, because some of you get in touch with me through Messenger, and I don't want you not to get in touch with me. So I'll tell you how else to get in touch with me, okay? Because that's how you get in touch with me. But where was I there? Just needed to say that there. Where was I? I love those, especially those in the house. So one of the things that I think society does is, and it's in retrospect that I've learnt this, and probably this journey, is that we're a secular country. We're a secular nation, okay? Okay, less than 2-3% of people come to church. Okay, it's bad, okay? It's poor. Now, the problem is the enemy infiltrates that, and then liberalism cries out for total acceptance. It's like everything that it demands acceptance. The charismatic movement demanded acceptance in the 60s. Demanded acceptance. It didn't matter whether it was right or no. It just demanded acceptance and then got it. Things demand acceptance and then they get it. And what happens is, the same as what happened in church, we become so secular, so all societies, governments and all that stuff, they become so secular. Now, that doesn't make them evil, but it makes them have no protection against evil. They're the problem. We don't have any protection against evil. We don't have any protection against wicked. We don't have any protection against this. Then we have the contemporary modern church, which comes along, and it tries to bridge the gap. There lies the problem. It tries to bridge the gap because what it does is it tries to embrace culture. That's what the church does. It tries to embrace culture. If you listen to modern church people and all the stuff today, they're trying to embrace culture. Callum was telling us he was at an event yesterday, and basically it was a Christian event that was totally secular. He hooked the secular people into church. It's almost apologising for not being relevant. It's crazy. It's crazy. Never wins MD. Never wins MD. And further takes us further away. But then what happens is the enemy can then find it dead easy to infiltrate the church then as well. Most Jezebels, wickedness, they're predominantly, you can get them anywhere, but they run riot in contemporary church. And generally they run riot in contemporary church. Where the word of God spoke less, they will run riot. A lot of stuff we've faced is remnants of that. So one of the things that we've learned in the last week or two is some of the stuff that we've done that's not actually been beneficial to the kingdom at all, but just embracing the culture, embracing the world, hoping to somehow get a sneaky way to get somebody to know Jesus. Yeah. You know. Go and read Spurgeon, see if you ever done that. Never. That was never how they built church. Never how they built church. They just preached the gospel and people get saved, and there was none of that. Now we have put ourselves probably in dangers, maybe a bit exaggerated, but we've probably put ourselves in difficult positions because we've done stuff to embrace the world. Okay? That's not, I hope this makes sense, but it's not really been beneficial to the kingdom or the church. But here's what happens. See, because the contemporary church has made Jesus, has turned Jesus into this all-loving, all-accepting guy. That if you do anything that's not all loving and no accepting, then you're not doing the will of God. That's how it operates. No. But here's the question. Was Jesus' ministry, was Jesus Jesus spent time, let me put it this way, Jesus spent time discipling the 12 disciples. That's what he done. Yeah. The modern church says he kept on reaching the lost, and that's all he done was reach them. No, that's what he done. But what he did was spent predominantly time equipping the disciples for the ministry. Now, the contemporary church have hijacked that as something else. So anytime the church isn't reaching the broken or reaching the lost or buying somebody a loaf, we're not being Christ-like. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? So then what happens is the modern church then thinks, we better start doing more stuff. We better start doing more outreach. We better start doing more parents and toddlers. We better start doing more of this. We better start doing more of this. And all you become is a secular church that does things that the church would do, but never any real transference to Christ. Yeah. And it gets hijacked with that. So we're learning all that. And I'd love to talk more about that, but probably not on a Sunday morning. But any questions to James, he'll answer all that. So all that stuff you learn on this journey about what we've done and what we've done as a church to get back to God always. God's not just sculpturing us, he's sculpturing the church back into what the church is meant to be. Yeah, and we've done a lot of stuff. See, when I look back at it, we've done a lot of stuff. Even recently when I look at it and I go, that's not beneficial at all to the kingdom whatsoever. Really, it's not. So, anyway, let me move on and go to Acts 27 because I think we'll finish next week, hopefully, in the book of Acts. 9-10 months, as I say, and it's just been an amazing time. And Paul is now in his final leg towards Rome, which God promised he would go to Rome. He's now in his final leg to Rome. He's under house arrest. He's been tagged, okay? He's got a tag, okay? Really, that's what he's got. Really, he has. He's literally, if this was modern, he would have a tag, right? Because he can't go anywhere. He can go at a certain time, but he needs to be in at a certain time. He's tagged, the guy. The guy's a criminal. No, even though he's not a criminal, but he's got a tag and he's constantly under house arrest. He's now at the final stage, and now he's on his way to Rome after 26, 27, all the trials and different stuff. He's had two different counsellors. He had Felix, then he had Festus. And Festus is then sent him to Caesar in Rome, which God had already said was going to happen, that he would end up in Rome. And the last two chapters are practically, and if you read these, the last two chapters are basically a nautical navigation through storms. Really, that's all it is. In fact, historians way back studied these passages, not for religious reasons, but for nautical reasons. They're so in the detail about how a boat should handle and how a ship should handle itself during storms and where it should go, that this was studied by historians way back. It's that in the detail. Talk about detail. It's unbelievable. Talk about God's sovereignty. Talk about God in the detail. As I read this a few times, I'm just like, oh no, another storm. Sail up, sail down. This happens. I mean, you're just thinking, what is this? I'm not wanting to be in a nautical storm. And especially I'm thinking, we're at chapter 27. There's only 2 chapters to go. Get more exciting than storms here. I'm looking for a bit more. Well, you could think that until you really start reading it. And what I think chapter 27, 28 is more about, and we'll get into 28 next week, is Paul showing again his mettle. Paul showing again his leadership and his love for his fellow man and the gospel. And it said Paul's reunited with Luke again, which I totally love. Because Luke was not with him when he was going through the trials. Luke would have been in Caesarea, but he would have been maybe staying a few miles away because he was not under arrest. And Luke, who was ever present with him and who wrote the book of Acts, is reunited with him again, which, I don't know about you, that just warms my heart that Luke, his brother in Christ, is reunited with him again in this final leg of his journey. And let me just, the subheading for this, just to let you know, the subheading for this is called Leading Through the Storm. Leading through the storm, learning how to lead through a storm. Leading's easy, but leading through a storm. One of the things I've learned or learning, or the thing that I've had to carry in my heart heavily in the last couple of weeks is my concern and my love for them in the household, that they're okay. In a storm, I just want to make sure they're okay. I want to make sure that I'm available for them regardless of the storm. And, you can get so sidetracked with storms and battles that you can get maybe so sidetracked with what somebody else is going through that you forget that you're dealing with your own stuff. Yeah. I talked to a woman years ago who was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was in AA at the time, and I remember speaking to her during one of the breaks, and I sat down with her and had a cup of tea, and she said to me, she was telling me about a story that her son had committed suicide, and she was like 2 weeks before it, and she was devastated, as you can only imagine. And I was just listening to her talk to me, and then she says, do you know one of the hardest things that I've found? She says, a lot of people would come and ask me for advice. But since this has happened, and it was maybe a month rather than 2 weeks, she says, nobody gets in touch with me. Nobody gets in touch with me. And she says, I'd still like to give advice. I'd still like to pour my heart out and help people. But I feel as if that nobody's asking me that. No. And people were saying to her, you know what, I know I've got problems, but don't you worry about my problems. You've got enough to now. I don't care about your problems. You've got enough to now, so I don't want to bother you. And in the last couple of weeks, I've wrestled with that in my heart, and I've found it tough because I know it doesn't matter what somebody's going through. Your problems, your problems. Yeah. Your dilemmas, and your struggles are your struggles. And the Church of Jesus Christ should be there to support anybody's struggle through anything. It shouldn't sidetrack somebody's battle because there's something else going on. And I think Paul epitomises this here in this verse. Let's go to Acts 27. I'm just going to pick out the odd verse. Acts 27, 1 and 2, and it says, and when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, that's how you know exactly that Paul's on the go. That's how you know Luke's back. It never says I anymore, it says we. So you know that Luke's on the boat. Now, we don't know why Luke got on the boat. There's a couple of reasons why Luke got on the boat. There are probably 2 reasons why Luke got on the boat. One, Festus allowed him to go on the boat to make him one favour with Caesar, because he wanted to look like a good guy. Or 2, they became slaves to Paul. It's the only way they were going on the boat. They became slaves to Paul so that they would get on the boat. Otherwise, they would never go on the boat. Either way, they're here now. Either way, Luke's back on the boat, and during Paul's last leg in his last season, the last season of this journey, and here it is, it says, and when it was decided that we should sail, Luke back writing, they delivered Paul and some other prisoners to one named Julius, a centurion of Augustan regiment. And then at the end of verse 2, it says, Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, was with us also, and he was Paul's friend who was also with him. And here they are setting sail on the road to Rome, and for the next chapter, all they do is hit storm after storm. Even the storms are named. These are tempests and storms, real storms, and they're named. And Paul, in this season, even though he's going through this stuff, he can't help himself but to take charge. And this could be a leadership message, but I believe everybody's a leader within their own right. Everybody's a leader. It just depends if you're leading your family or whatever. But there's just certain types of leader, and Paul is this certain type of leader. And as I study this, you just feel like, what an amazing guy. It just, whatever he is, he just becomes a leader. You know, there's some people that it doesn't matter. If you get into a room, see within an hour, I've heard somebody saying this, it doesn't matter how many bottles of milk there are, the cream always comes to the top. You know, it's true. And Paul's just a leader of leaders. And he just begins to take charge of the whole thing and starts to direct and guide and starts to own the situation. And I think one of the hardest things I've found is, I don't know if you find this, see when you're facing hardship or trials or persecution, is to continue to keep taking charge and ownership of the situation. You know, because you don't want to throw away your confidence. For in due course it'll be richly rewarded. And sometimes when you're taking hit after hit after hit after hit, you sometimes can forget that you're there to lead. And you sometimes forget that you're there to lead, and you can start second guessing yourself and lose our confidence or our spark or maybe our mojo. If you like, you know what I mean? But I think you can anyway. Well, I have at times. And Paul stayed solid, remained a leader, remained a friend. Listen what it says in verse 3. This is how Paul can still change people's lives. Which he says, verse 3, And it says, and the next day we landed in Sidon, and Julius, this is the guy who's in charge of making sure he doesn't run away. Yeah. This is the guy who's in charge. And this is what it says. And the next day he landed in Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him liberty to go with his friends to receive care. One day, and the guy's letting him go free. One day. It's only took one day for Julius to trust this guy. What kind of guy is this? This is but he's an amazing guy. One day, he's been on the boat. Julius doesn't know him. He's been on the boat. And within 24 hours, Julius says, this guy's sound. I mean, I don't know what conversations he was having. I have no idea what conversations Paul was having for Julius to trust him. Julius would have had to trust him because Julius knows one thing. One, he's not going to bolt because I'll die. I'll be killed. And two, I feel safe with this guy. I trust this guy. One day in Julius, he's care and authority, and Paul is one he's trust. What a leader. Yeah. One day with an enemy, and he's one he's trust. Julius trusts him not to do a runner. He trusts him he won't get into trouble. He trusts him when he gets out the boat that he'll know that he'll come back. And this is the effect Paul has on people. What an effect. A leader in storms, and this is the effect he has. The mark of the man, he never allowed the situation to... And this is the thing. He never allowed his situation to become his compass. You can never allow your situation to become your compass and guide because it's going to take you away from your purpose. So no matter what Paul was going through, he's still focused on, this is my role, this is my purpose, to win souls, to lead, to help people. How vital is it to believers that circumstances never become greater guide than a purpose? That is always an assignment assassin for the enemy. That assignment assassin for you to lose focus on your purpose, for you to lose focus on what you're meant to be doing, and then get caught in the storm and get caught in the battle and forget who you are. No, and they'll happen throughout your life, these assignment assassins. And as each verse passes in this chapter, Paul's leadership, I mean, his leadership just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Paul is the lowest of the low in this boat. Now, let me tell you, because I'll tell you at the end, there's 67 people on this boat. 260, either 67 or 76. I'll tell you at the end. What's the difference? What's 10 between friends? There's either 267 people on this boat or 276. And Paul is the lowest guy out of them all. He is the prisoner. He is the lowest of the low at them all. Within 2 days, he's owning the boat. Don't you love that? Don't you just love that? That just amazes me. You're just like, wow, what a guy. What a guy. It doesn't matter what he's going through. He's just owning his zone. He's not trying to be a leader here. He just is. He's not trying to be anything. He just is. It's just who he is. And the boat ends up in all sorts of trouble, storms. And Paul's not an expert in boats, but he takes charge. And he starts to lead the whole crew. The people are in charge of him. The other prisoners. Luke. Oh, the other guys that's prisoners. Every single person, Julius. He just takes charge of the whole boat here. And if you read verse chapter 27, you're just like, Paul done this, Paul said this, Paul done this, Paul said that. No, just a lot. Yeah. It's just amazing. Because he's so focused. He's so focused in loving and serving people. Okay, let me move on. How amazing. Paul could have fled. He could have fled. See, when Julie says you can go off, just get off the boat. We're going to do it. When you go on one of the cruise ships, you go on a sightseeing tour and then you get back on the boat. The boat's leaving at 6. Paul goes and meets people, preaches the gospel, and then walks back. I mean, who would be off? Who would be? You wouldn't be like, I'm off. I'm not going back. He gets back. He gets back to the... You remember Paul done that earlier on when he was in prison? Do you remember when Paul was jailed earlier on? They let him out of jail. The prison guard lets him out of jail, takes him home. Do you remember? He takes him home. The prison guard takes Paul home. And Paul, his wife, he phones his wife. Well, I don't think he phones her, whatever he does. Well, obviously he doesn't phone her. But he's equivalent to phoning her and he's like, I've got a prisoner here. I'm taking him off the chains. He's coming for dinner. Oh, I'll make a nice meal. And his wife makes a meal. He sits and has a meal with the family, leads them all to Jesus. Then the guard says, right, go. And he's like, oh, no. You'll need to take me back to jail. And he goes back to jail again, just like that there. And Paul could have fled. He could have took Mutiny of the ship. He says, listen, I'm taking Mutiny of the ship. With the prisoners, what does he do? Simply leads the whole ship. Simply leads the whole ship in 267 or 276 people through the storm. And then what does he do next? He then starts to offload what's not needed. And here's a classic here. There's a wee line in this that I just love. And it'd be so easy to miss this. Verse 19, it says, on the third day we threw the ship's tackle overboard. On the third day, so what Paul's doing is he's now leading the whole ship and he's saying, what do we no need here? No, this is what great leaders do. They learn what you don't need when you're in a battle. And the third day, the ship threw the tackle overboard. What was the ship flinging overboard? Anything this is amazing, but as I was studying this, see the tackle is all the nets and all the stuff. See, anything that can entangle you needs to get out. Yeah. Anything that can entangle you. Paul knows it's vital during storm to remove anything that could entangle him. Yeah. During storms, don't you know how easy it is when you're in a storm or a trial to get entangled? Yeah. Isn't it? No, they say, all that stuff. But worse than that, it's so dangerous. Yeah. And Paul said the last thing we need to be thinking about is catching fish. Yeah. He's like, get that overboard. And they could remove. He started to remove anything. You know, it makes me think, just thinking there. Have you ever read the book of Nehemiah? The book of Nehemiah is the greatest leadership book. The greatest leadership book in the Bible. And you know, Nehemiah said, when it said that Sanballat, the Amorites and the Ashdodites conspired to attack Nehemiah and the army. And this is what the people says. Yeah? The people came to Nehemiah and says, Nehemiah, we cannot build the wall anymore because there is so much rubbish that we can't build. You ever notice when you're in a storm, you can't see anything for all the rubbish? Yeah. You know, like something happens and before you know, I'm no good, this is bad. And no, it's like total recall. Because the enemy wants to remember you, every single mistake that you've ever made in your life. And Nehemiah says, no, he clears the rubbish. He clears the rubbish, because Sanballat and Tobiah, the common enemy, always want to put rubbish into your life and create confusion so that you can't keep building. It's always the case, and similar here to Paul. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard. And then in verse 21 to 25, move on. But after a long abstinence from food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, men, you should have listened to me. And Paul's now giving a speech. You should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. And now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night. Here's Paul getting his last vision. An angel of God to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar. Indeed, God has granted you all those who sail with you. Therefore, take heart, men, for I believe God that it will be just as it was told to me. Again, Paul taking ownership and reminding, but more importantly, reminding everybody, including himself, his purpose. Getting to Rome. God reminds Paul, no matter the storm, no matter the trial, no matter the storm, no matter the trial, no matter what you're going through, if God says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Doesn't matter what else is going on. Paul then continues to guide the whole ship, protecting everyone. Verse 31. Paul said to the centurion soldiers, Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, unless these men stay on the ship, you cannot be saved. Paul is now working together with every single person, them who like him, them who don't like him, them who love him, them who don't love him, all for the purpose of saving souls. All for the purpose of saving souls. Okay, let me bring this in. Verse 33 to 38 is amazing. And as day was about to dawn, Paul implored them all to take food, saying, today is the 14th day you have waited. and continued without food and eating nothing. Still interested in the people's well-being. Therefore, I urge you to take nourishment, for this is for your survival, since not a hair will fall from your head of any of you. The hair from your head will not fall from any of you is a Jewish slogan, if you like, which actually means complete protection. Don't be afraid of the complete protection. And when he had said these things, would you hear this? I was reading this, I couldn't believe that he decided to take communion. Of all the places, it says, and he said these things. He took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of them all. And when he had broke it, he began to eat. Paul's taking communion on the boat. He's in a storm. What a guy. And then verse 36 and 37. Then they were all encouraged and also took food themselves. And all we were 76, right enough. And all they were 276 persons on the ship, every single one of them been saved or no perished. Paul, a prisoner, a man who faced horrendous persecution, took charge of a boat and saved 276 men. Now that is truly leading through a storm, don't you think? Yeah. I want to close by saying this. It says, I'll just say what it says at 38 to close. So when they'd eaten enough, they lightened the ship and threw it overboard, meaning they just took enough, never overindulged, just took enough of what they need and get the stuff that you don't need overboard. Next week we'll finish the book of Acts, but let me close by saying this for some of you. When we're facing stuff, when you're in stuff, whether it's win, lose or draw, we have to lead. Yeah. We have to lead. We can't allow results to stop us leading. Some people in this room are just leaders. It's who they are. No matter what you're facing, and we're all called to lead, but depends on what we're leading. But no matter what you're going through, no matter what storm you're going through, leaders will always, true leaders will always just keep serving. No, I've met enough of you in this room who are leaders. And whether the result goes for you, the result doesn't go for you. I want to say, you see, whether the result goes for you, the result doesn't go for you. Never lose your voice in being a leader. Whether you're winning or whether you're losing, never lose your voice in leading. Because that's what the enemy wants you to do. He just wants to shut down your voice. He wants you to stop leading. He wants to shut you down. No matter what season you're going through, never lose your voice in leading. And get your mojo back. No matter what. Seriously, no matter what, you need to get your mojo back. And I know what it's like when you take hits or beatings and then you end up thinking, oh, how can I keep leading? How can I keep leading? How can I keep leading? There's no greater win than when you keep on leading even when you're getting battered. Wherever it may be, whether it be in your workplace. Yeah. I've said to the couple, and as you know, Fraser and Carolyn are going through stuff, what an opportunity. What an opportunity, as hard as it is and tough as it is what you're facing. What an opportunity to show people how to win and lose with Christ. It's easy to teach people how to win. See, teaching them how to lose, it's a whole different thing. And how to remain a positive attitude during these seasons. Yeah. I think in this last season, I think some things have been flung overboard. But, that's just how it is, and I think we've flung stuff as a church overboard, and I think it's lightened the load for what we need in this church. Because I think we're carrying a lot of stuff that we didn't need, a lot of stuff that's no biblical, a lot of stuff that was no necessary for the journey, a lot of things that was no been necessary for building in this church. Because at the end of the day, we're no social club. Church of Jesus Christ. Paul gets shipwrecked. His last shipwreck, he gets shipwrecked in Malta. An amazing thing happens. No, I just love what it says, and I would have liked to have got to it, but I ran out of time. But it says that a serpent bites him in the arm, and everybody's waiting for it to destroy him. I love this. It says the whole of in fact, the whole of Malta, the whole country is almost watching as he lands. The boat then gets tossed to and fro, and he gets shipwrecked. He gets shipwrecked in Malta. And he arrives on the shore, St. Paul's Bay it's called. If you've ever been to Malta, you can go and visit it. It's called St. Paul's Bay, still there to this day. And you can go and visit St. Paul's Bay where Paul gets shipwrecked in Malta. It's a predominantly Roman Catholic Malta now, but before then it's where Paul landed. And it says as he gets to Malta that he starts a fire because they're frozen and they've been in these storms. It's the winter, and he lights a campfire. And as he lights the campfire, it says a serpent comes out the fire, and it grabs his arm and it bites him. And everybody stands and watches to see what happens. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. It doesn't poison him. It doesn't affect him. It doesn't kill him. It doesn't destroy him. It doesn't make him sick. It doesn't make him ill. And the whole of the country then just are amazed. They're saying, wow. They see it as a miracle for God that even a serpent can't damage you. And it says he spent the next 2 years or something, or the next length of time. I don't want to say for certain what the time scale is, but he spends the next season in the Holy Malta, and he wins the whole country. How amazing. How he wins the whole country because he led, he was unaffected. And even when the serpent came and bit him, it didn't have any effect on his life. And he kept leading, gets back in the boat, gets to Rome, rents a house, no seriously, because there are 2 arrests in Rome, rents a house and starts preaching the gospel for the next 2 years in Rome. What an amazing guy. Yeah. What an amazing guy. And if there's a call of leadership in your life, don't allow the enemies or the storms to distract you. Don't allow them to. You might be the only voice that these people have got. How you are and how you live when you're going through hard things says much more about you than how you are when you're going through good stuff. It really, really does. Okay, band, come up. I want to just say to the people in the church, thank you for embracing this journey, what you've been on. It's been amazing. And God's not finished yet, for sure. God's not finished yet. I know some of you have had to face your own storms and own battles through this. Please keep talking to us. Talk to us about the battles and trials. And amongst that, God will purify his church. That's always what happens in persecution, is purification. It's always purification, that you realise that. I done my thinking church this week, and it talks about in 1 Corinthians that, one of the hardest things in storms is that you start to exalt yourself above the knowledge of God. Because you care more about what folk think about you than what God says about you. Yeah. So never exalt yourself above the knowledge of God. 1 Corinthians, it says, or 2 Corinthians chapter 10. It says, we do not fight flesh and blood, but powers and principalities, for tearing down strongholds, casting down arguments. Here. See the arguments that were casted? You ever want to argue? Do you know the arguments that need to get casted down is the ones in here that make you want to argue? And do you know why you want to argue? The next verse tells you want to argue. Casting down arguments and every lofty thing that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. Meaning, it says, who want to be exalted above the knowledge of God. Do you know why we want to argue? Because we want to be acknowledged above God. That's why we argue. We want to be casting down arguments and every lofty thing that exalts itself above the knowledge of God. Arguments is all because you want to exalt yourself above the knowledge of God. It's exactly why we argue. It's exactly why we fight back. It's exactly why we do that, because it's never the way that God wants it to be. It says, it finishes in 2 Corinthians 10, and then it says, and we have to be ready to punish all disobedience. Do you know what the disobedience is? Trying to fight your corner. Sometimes that's the disobedience. Disobedience is trying to fight your corner and prove to the world that you're better than what you are. The fight belongs to God. The fight's his. He doesn't want you to fight. He doesn't want you to fight. I see that. And if he doesn't want you to fight, he wants you to fight different. I think over the last 2-3 weeks, if I've noticed anything that needs more crucified in my life as a pastor of this church is I need to forget about trying to exalt myself above the knowledge of God. And I need to let God deal with that. That's what gets you annoyed. That's a resentment. See, a resentment, that's acknowledging yourself above the knowledge of God. Jealousy, that's acknowledging yourself above the knowledge of God. Bitterness, that's acknowledging yourself above the knowledge of God. Lack of forgiveness, that's acknowledging yourself above. That's exalting yourself above the knowledge of God. Rejection, abandonment, self-indulgence, fighting your corner, telling people what you should say and that's you just trying to exalt yourself above the knowledge of God. When that goes, we don't exalt ourselves above the knowledge of God. It says, when we come obedient to that, then we can punish disobedience. The problem is we're punishing other people's disobedience before we're even obedient ourselves. Yeah. In this season, above everything else, I've realised, you know what, Mark? Just for me personally, I'm not trying to be the star of the show here. Wow, you don't have to exalt yourself above the knowledge of God at times. You don't have to be bigger than God at times. You don't have to think you're more important than God. Why? And God takes us through that deliberately. To crucify the flesh. To become nothing but a slave to Christ. Yeah. To become a man of no reputation. That we may decrease so that he may increase. So that when all is said and done, he receives all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. No us at all. Yeah. If I've learned anything, I'm learning to get beat better. I'm learning to surrender better. I'm learning to allow God to deal with me the way he needs to deal with me and crucify the flesh. How dare I try to exalt myself above the knowledge of God? That's not what this church, that's not what I want to achieve here. You can't hurt a dead man then, can you? People have came and said to me, I'd be saying that. Do you know what I sometimes say? Get behind me, Satan. Because you're not mindful of the things of God. That's what I'd say. If somebody shouted that out or said that, I'd just say, get behind me, Satan, because you're not mindful of the things of God. Jesus says this. You know, when Peter put him aside to rebuke him sternly, because Jesus says, I must come into the hands of my betrayer, and I must suffer many things. Meaning talking about his crucifixion. And Peter says, forbid it that anything happen to you. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan, for you're not mindful of the things of God. You don't know why I'm here and why I even exist. What a way to live. You see the martyrs, how they live. That's how they lived. That's how they lived. That's how they died. You know, Paul's death isn't even documented in the Bible. You know, at the end of Acts 28, it says that he spent 2 years there. Because Luke wrote that, not knowing that there were another arrest coming. That's why it's not wrote. It's not even wrote about how he died. It's kind of, very rarely is it. It's same with Peter. It's hardly wrote. Because it was never about that. It was never about glorifying their death. It was about glorifying Jesus' life. Their death became nothing. Absolutely nothing. Paul, 28 verses, you think you're going to get to the end and go, and then Paul done this, hallelujah, and a big praise. Nothing about his death, because it was never about him. It was always about Jesus. It was always about him. They wrote in a wee line, almost nothing. And Paul, nothing. And historians say that he got his head chopped off by Nero. Do you know where he got his head? Do you know? They took him outside of Rome. They took him to the furthest recesses of the town where nobody would know him. This is how he died. Where nobody would know him, where nobody would have a big stir, where nobody would mourn or have a big, massive tumult or funeral. And they took him out into obscurity where nobody knew who he was. And he chopped his head off. Thinking that that would be enough for people to forget. It's wrote here. Oh, thank God for the life. Thank God for Paul's life. You know, my prayer is that each and every one of you is starting with me. I can only, for me, for myself, it's just that I would just become more like that. That you would just become more like that, that we would become less and less and less. And we wouldn't want to be exalted above the knowledge of God, no matter what. Amen. Amen. Everybody stand together. Let's just pray, Lord Jesus. We thank you for your word and the life of Paul. Definitely taught us how to lead through storms. Thank you what you're teaching us in this church and in this season. Lord, we get snippets. I do anyway. I get snippets of your glory and snippets of your sovereignty and snippets of your providence. It's amazing. We thank you, God, that what you're teaching us here. Pray that the leaders would keep leading. Win, lose or draw, they would just keep leading. They would lead by example. They would never, ever want to exalt themselves above your knowledge, no matter what we're going through. They would be willing to fling overboard any nets or any obstacles or any snares that would try and entrap us. That would stop us fighting the good fight of faith. That we could all say at the end, I ran my race. I fought the good fight. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us in our live stream today. We really hope that God's word has impacted you.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have any prayer requests, then please send them into info@hopeunited.org.uk and we will be praying for you.
See you soon.